We reviewed a lot of Switch controllers on this channel, and normally when I review them, I do my best to be pretty objective about it. What I think is its strengths, its weaknesses, what kind of people might want one version or the other. That's not today's video. Today's video is I am rounding up all of my favorite Switch controllers that we have covered and that I've used and still use to this day, either because it's my regular go-to or it's one that I break out for certain specific games or special occasions. So let's talk about my favorite Switch controllers. When it comes to more specialized controller designs than the Switch that are officially licensed, there's really not that much out there just yet. It's mostly normal controllers and Joy-Con alternatives, but what we do have are fight sticks.
So how do you think he does it?
Beats me.
Where do you learn that trick?
I love fighting games. I'm not particularly great at them, sadly, but I love playing them. And I love using a fight stick because it gives me this feeling of old school nostalgia of playing on an actual arcade cabinet. And for the longest time, I actually used the PS4 version of this stick right here, the Wrap 4, and once I was able to get this one on the Switch, it just felt like home. The fighting game genre has been growing on the Switch. In fact, we just got the release of Mortal Kombat 11, so there's starting to be a lot of great excuses to pick up a fighting stick, and I just love the design of this one. It uses Hori's own in-house button and stick designs, and if you're not a fan of those or you want to get the really high-end stuff, these are actually pretty easy to customize if you want to open them up and replace it with what you'd prefer. Now, while I am a huge fan of this stick in particular, Hori's actually also got an alternative stick design they've just recently released, which is also a great option to pick up, which is over here on the side. Now this is their mini pad. Now the Hayabusa is a great stick, but also pretty expensive. This is meant to be a more portable, affordable option that is way less money and works really great still. Good buttons, good sticks, and a lot easier to carry around with you. While I love using the Wrap 5 as sort of my at-home Switch fight stick, it's not something I really necessarily want to carry around with me whenever I'm going to a friend's house or playing somewhere else. So this ends up being a great portable option for me if I want to play fighting games and still have that stick interface, but not be lugging around this giant thing. The only downside of the stick is that the stick only acts as a D-pad, which for the vast majority of fighting games is not an issue at all. That's what most of them use for controls. But because this is designed for Switch, there is one specific example where it's a problem, and that's Super Smash Bros. If you want to use Super Smash Bros. With a fight stick, this will not work for you because this is only going to cause you to taunt and you will not be able to move around at all. But for anything else, if you just want a small, portable, and affordable option to use a fight stick on the Switch, great option. The PowerA GameCube controller. Now, I know there are those purists out there that are always gonna argue, oh no, if I'm playing Smash, I'm using a real official Nintendo GameCube controller, I'm gonna use the adapter or maybe one of the wireless ones from 8BitDo.
Nothing comes between a man and his game. Fork and play with Wavebird wireless controller, new for Nintendo GameCube.
That's cool, that's fine. This gets the job done perfectly for me. It's giving me that feeling of a GameCube controller, and while it isn't perfectly exactly the same when it comes to the feeling of the sticks or the button presses, it is so very close, while giving me the benefit of having additional buttons that make it a full-blown Switch controller and is wireless. This is my main go-to for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and I'll also use it for a couple other games in docked mode. The main reasoning behind it is whether or not I think the design of the game fits the ABXY setup on the GameCube controller. If you haven't heard me rant about this before, one of the things I love about the GameCube controller design is the different approach to ABXY, and it's something that doesn't work out great for all games, but for any kind of game where the A button is the central focus and everything needs you to access the other buttons by rolling from it, it is so great for those. It's a very specialized design that doesn't work for every single game out there, but when it does, it is a huge win. And something that I really appreciate that PowerA did with this one is they did release it in both a wired and wireless model. So I like using the wireless one. It's just one of the main benefits of having the controller to me. But if you just like the idea of a newer style GameCube controller and you don't want to spend as much money on the wireless, there's that option out there too. Another cool thing is that PowerA has released these in a variety of different colors, which are all based on the actual old school GameCube controllers. You can get them in the traditional indigo purple, which I know a lot of people are bigger fans of. You can get it in black. I personally went for the silver, or platinum is actually what Nintendo calls them, but I had a platinum GameCube growing up. That's the color I've always loved and associated. I know it's not the main traditional everyone goes back to, but it just has this strong nostalgic factor for me. By the way, if you want a really cool and easy way to customize your Switch, you can grab skins like these from today's sponsor, D-Brand. They're totally safe to use. They come in a variety of different colors. You can get them for the Joy-Cons, the Switch itself, or the dock. Check out the link down below. Now this next controller is honestly a little bit of a boring answer for some of you, but honestly, it's the truth. Just the standard straight-up Switch Pro controller. This is a great controller. It's not the cheapest one out there, it doesn't necessarily have any kind of additional crazy special features, but it has an excellent shape and design to it that I think is really comfortable and just makes it a really safe go-to for me for any kind of game where I'm not entirely sure what button layout's gonna be perfect just yet. Part of this comes from the fact that in the long-standing forever war of PlayStation versus Xbox, one of the big debates is, of course, controllers that you like. And I've kind of always enjoyed and found the Xbox-style controller to be more comfortable, and that's something that the Switch Pro controller leans a lot more in the direction of, in terms of how the grip is shaped and the fact that it uses the offset sticks instead of the parallel design. Something I love about Nintendo's approach to the Pro Controller as well is that they have been releasing other designs, but it's not just the standard like, oh, we made a red one or a blue one, which I would still like to see as well. But I love they've been doing a lot of different special edition designs inspired by different games. For instance, this is obviously the Smash Brothers design with the silver Smash logo on it with the white handles, which I think looks really, really nice. I'm also a huge fan of the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 design. Splatoon's alright, it's not quite my thing as much, but it's still a good looking, well-designed controller. I just think when it comes to aesthetics, they're really starting to find a better way of tackling special edition controller designs, and I'm really excited to see more of these down the line. Plus, if you're not a fan of any of the designs that are actually currently out, it's surprisingly really easy to do a shell swap on these. I mean, I've done shell swaps on a couple different Nintendo products. Joy-Cons are very difficult. Switches themselves, not too hard for at least the backplate. Pro controllers are the easiest thing. It just takes a couple screws to take out, nothing's complex, you're not rewiring anything. Really simple job, and you can find all kinds of different third-party designs out there, including stuff like glow-in-the-dark handles, or even a Pokemon-style one. Is this a safe, slightly uninspired choice? Sure, but for good reason. Now, I might lose some of you on this next one. It's going to be a little bit of a break from tradition, and maybe a little awkward for some, but honestly, it's one of my favorite recent releases for the Switch, the 8BitDo M30, which is a Sega Genesis style controller.
Sega Mega Drive 16-bit CPU 搭載
I know this is a weird crossover of old school enemies, but when it comes to retro games on the Switch, I love having a good old school D-pad to use on it, and 8BitDo is one of the best companies when it comes to making D-pads on controllers. And a lot of people go to the SN30 Pro, which is a great, awesome option if you want a more SNES shape style controller. It does well, and that's one I used before this one came out, but this has completely taken over as my new favorite. The main reason being that while it isn't exactly a traditional Nintendo shape or button layout, it is a very comfortable controller design, probably one of the most comfortable retro style controllers that I've used, and has one of, if not the best D-pad I've ever used, flat out. It's great for traditional directional movement, but also awesome for rolling inputs. They also added shoulder buttons to this, so it adds more control options that'll make it actually fit for a lot more games on the Switch that I might make use of more than just the 6 right here on the front. And while I do personally prefer to use a stick in fighting games, if I wanted to use a pad option outside of the GameCube controller, for Smash again, that's its own dedicated option, but any other fighters, if I want to use a fight pad, this is the way I go. But you can also buy a special dedicated 2.4 GHz model that connects specifically to an adapter that plugs into Sega Genesis. So if you want to have the fastest, cleanest connection possible and use it on an old school system, that's another option out there for you. Next, let's take a break from standard controllers and talk about Joy-Cons, or in this case, Joy-Con. This is the Hori D-pad controller, and at first glance, there are some things about it that some people get scared of right away. The fact that it does not have any kind of wireless connection, it doesn't have rumble, none of that matters because it addresses one of the biggest issues that a lot of people have with the Switch in handheld mode: no built-in D-pad. This is a problem that a lot of people have had with the Switch's design. There's been a lot of different solutions offered for how to fix this, including different covers that you just put on top of regular Joy-Cons. There's shell exchanges we've done before, and those give you the feeling of a D-pad in the sense that there is a D-shaped button you can press, but the problem, not D-shaped, it's a cross-shaped. That's an outtake. While this gives you the feeling of a D-pad where you have a cross-shaped thing you can press, it's not really a D-pad. It's just 4 clicky buttons that now have a different shape to them, and it doesn't have the same kind of feeling that an actual retro D-pad would have. The Hori D-pad, on the other hand, actually feels like a real D-pad, something that's inspired by retro controllers. And so when I'm playing retro games in handheld on the Switch, this is something that I really like to have on hand instead of the traditional Joy-Cons. Basically, anytime I want to play a game handheld and use a D-pad, this gets attached. And for those of you that haven't seen these before, they do come in a couple different designs outside of this Zelda one. They're all inspired by different major Nintendo franchises, like there's a Pikachu Pokemon one, there's a Mario one that's red. I personally like the Zelda one the most though. I think the black and gold is always a really good color combination. And something it does a little differently from the other two is that they both kind of have a patterning effect on the front, which doesn't look bad. I just think the very more intentional, specific layout on this looks a lot better. Really, the only major complaint I have about these is the fact that they are a wired, or I guess directly connected shifted option only. There is no wireless version just yet. Hopefully that's something we see down the line, because I would love a wireless Joy-Con that gives me that D-pad option.